Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepted the Democratic nomination for president on Thursday, with a rousing call to end the war in Gaza and fight tyranny around the world. On the final and most anticipated night of the four-day Chicago convention, Harris promised to chart a new way forward as the presidential race enters the final 11 weeks.
Chicago's United Center brimmed with energy and people. The arena's 23,500 seats were filled, and arena staff briefly blocked more people from entering the facility. Chants of Kamala and USA reverberated at Chicago's United Center as she took the stage.
On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Harris went directly at her Republican rival Donald Trump. She blamed him for the horrors some women have faced amid the implementation of strict state-level abortion laws.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And one must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
Kamala Harris vowed to bring back and sign a bipartisan border bill should she win the election in November.
I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
Just hours before Kamala Harris made her speech, Trump visited the US-Mexico border in Arizona and called Harris a lazy border czar.
Had a border czar who was the border czar. She loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy, and probably more importantly than being lazy, she wants to have an open border.
Not only domestic issues, but international matters also were part of Kamala's speech. After days of protests from Palestinian supporters who were disappointed at not getting a speaking spot at the convention, Harris delivered a pledge to secure Israel, bring the hostages home from Gaza, and end the war in the Palestinian enclave.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Harris remembered her Indian-origin mother, Dr. Shyamala Gopalan. Teary-eyed, Harris highlighted how her mother, at 19 years of age, traveled the world alone from India to the US. She lauded her mother's unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer.
When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica, They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me.
If successful, Harris stands to make history as the first woman-elected US president. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, for more on this story, we are now being joined by Lester Munson, a senior fellow at National Security Institute in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. Welcome back. While Kamala Harris has lashed out at President Donald Trump, her opponents, notably the former president and his running mate, J.D. Vance, are questioning her record during the last 4 years in the White House as vice president, notably regarding immigration issues and the border. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Republican campaign, I think, sees an opportunity to highlight the difference between where the Biden-Harris administration has been on immigration and what the Democrats' nominee Kamala Harris is saying about immigration now. For the first 3.5 years of the Biden-Harris administration, the U.S. had a very lax policy along the border with Mexico. A number of immigrants came in over the border illegally, millions of them. Now Kamala Harris is sounding like she's going to be tough on the border and control the border and secure the border. So I think it's totally fair game for the Republicans, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, to be highlighting this difference. If she's really for securing the border, why didn't her administration do it for the last 3 years?
Right. And why not now? And what about her other challenges as an incumbent, like economy and jobs, which are top of mind for many voters? She laid out an economic plan that even her staunchest supporters were a little concerned about.
Yeah, to be totally frank, as much as she's gotten good reviews for the convention and Democrats are very excited about her candidacy, there's no doubt about that, her economic plan really doesn't make much sense. She's effectively calling for price controls on groceries, which won't work. There's almost no economists in the world who would tell you that's a good idea. It's very likely to drive up inflation, which has been a big problem during the Biden administration. Which, of course, Kamala Harris has been a big part of, and she hasn't really addressed economics in a way that makes sense. Her polling numbers against Donald Trump on the economy are quite bad. It's actually much better for Trump. She needs a better and more coherent plan, I think, to be able to sustain a campaign against him for the next 2.5 months. So I would look for the Democrats to kind of change up the way they're talking about the economy after this convention in Chicago.
Right. And we'll have to see ultimately, is she going to give a press conference? Is she going to give a sit-down interview? Anything like that where we understand where she's standing on many policies. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on WION, Lester.
Thank you.
For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.